Some of us constantly harbor a certain desire, a deep yearning for understanding. Perhaps it's not the best way, but even so, some feel a greater peace when they can anticipate the unfolding of events, especially when it comes to crucial aspects of their lives. Whether in the workplace or in our emotional relationships, one part of our mind insists, "This won't succeed, blah, blah, blah," while another part says with conviction, "Yes, it will succeed." This relationship between yes and no resonates incessantly in our thoughts throughout the day. Sometimes we are truly dedicated to a task, and internally, the discussion begins. Will they fire you? No, they won't. They will? No, they won't. There comes a point when we feel that our sanity is hanging by a thread, but there are times when this certainty is so intense that we manage to calm down. Have you ever felt this? So we start to ask ourselves, how can I discern the right answer? How do I identify the voice of intuition in the midst of this chaos? How do I differentiate the voice of intuition from all this mental battle? I believe that many people understand this question. It's a pattern in the human mind, perhaps more marked in some than others, but who can say? But I think that the answer doesn't lie in trying to figure out which of these voices is the right one. Perhaps the real answer lies in discovering within ourselves that space which is not the voice, but the conscience. Perhaps our greatest challenge is not to try to determine which voice is right. Instead, we can only discover this space of awareness within ourselves. This can only be practiced when these voices emerge, because there is the voice and there is the other side, but who is aware of that? I'm just presenting this question to you. You don't need to feel the need to answer this question, because perhaps there is no verbal answer, just a direct perception within yourself. It's a question we don't need to answer with words. So I ask you to think again. Who is this in you? What or who within you is aware of these conflicting voices? I strongly believe that there is an awareness, otherwise we wouldn't perceive the presence of the voice. The voices we perceive are thought formations, manifestations of free energy. Think about it. Each thought is an energy field, and each thought formation wants to attract your attention, sucking you in. One of them whispers, "Come here." The other replies, "No, come here." They are like miniature entities. Although this may sound a little mysterious, there is nothing supernatural about it. Imagine a thought as an entity, not a physical one, but an energetic entity that resides there, with a life of its own. Some thoughts persist for long periods, while certain thought patterns are entities that can change, taking on one form and then another. Each thought is a small entity, or, if you prefer, an energy field. It wants you to identify with it. It wants to attract all your attention because the more attention it receives, the more it grows. It seeks to expand, just like all things. It doesn't want to disappear. So a question arises from this. When this happens, who am I? Am I this voice? I don't think so. You are conscious of the voice, of all these voices. And from this space of conscious presence, the voices stop disturbing you. When we recognize them as mere voices, it becomes clear that it doesn't matter whether we go this way or that, or whether something succeeds or fails. We don't know. I believe that our responsibility is to remain present and to disidentify from the voices. When those conflicting voices come up, trying to discern whether something will be successful or not, remember that you don't know, and the voice doesn't know either. It's just acting. One voice pretends to know that it won't succeed, while the other pretends to know that it will. Both don't know the answer. And when we realize that these voices are just thought formations, we understand that they don't have knowledge. In this understanding, we reduce the importance attributed to these voices. We can compare them to people around us. Try to visualize each voice as a person, one on the left, one on the right, both expressing ideas. However, they are ignorant, merely trying to conceive something. If these people were physically present, we could simply say, "Go away, I don't need to hear this. All I need to do is embrace the only element present in my life, which is this moment. I need to honor and devote my full attention to this moment, rather than to the voices saying this and that." It's important to be sure that things will work out one way or another. For example, when we're in a new relationship, it's certain that something positive will happen. It may or may not result in happy coexistence for a while. Even in the absence of success, we will have learned something valuable, because every experience is a lesson, an opportunity to grow in consciousness. That's a point I reinforce a lot here. Regardless of the circumstances and events, we always learn something. We just have to expand our perspective on what happens. People often find themselves paralyzed by questions such as, "What is my real mission in life? What should I do?" The problem is that the tangle of possibilities can lead to indecision. The doubt about which path to follow, this or that, can keep us static for long periods. But when we become present, abandoning the search for answers in the movement of thought, we realize that we never find a genuine answer through this movement. So, the first step is to be present. At some point, a thought may arise with a different energy, a thought that we feel is real. But remember, it's not just a thought. It's a perception that, by chance, manifests itself in the form of a thought. Imagine the following scenario. You've been living in a city for a while. One morning you wake up with a deep conviction that it's time to move on. There's no clear reason, but this persistent certainty hasn't allowed any contradictory thoughts to creep in. There was no voice saying, "No, maybe I should stay." That reflection just came from presence. This is just a small example of the difference between the voice that arises and your intuition. They are totally different things, but we can only identify this difference by being present. The crucial point is to realize that we are not these transient voices. We are something deeper, the awareness of presence. This awareness recognizes the voices as mere murmurs in the mind, without attributing an absolute truth and understanding their relative insignificance. Who am I? Is a vital question that takes us on a journey of self-discovery. When we question ourselves, we dive even deeper. You, me, and all of us are presence itself, but this understanding can only be realized by yourself. One suggestion I can give you is, when these voices arise, make a conscious choice not to follow them. Instead, direct your attention to your body's internal energy field. While this frantic internal dialogue is a common human experience, this practice can free you from this often chaotic echo. When confusion permeates our mind, it's essential to recognize that we won't find answers there. It's liberating to redirect our attention to the body's internal energy field, accepting not knowing. Yes, it's challenging. Sometimes we have solid certainty, as I exemplified at the beginning of the video, but this internal dialogue arises. The persistent desire for knowledge, this restlessness, can be somewhat irritating, a characteristic shared by many human beings. However, there is a duality. On the one hand, it is understandable to yearn for knowledge, and there is a place for it. On the other hand, there is a different dimension where acceptance of not knowing is essential. This is the dimension of being. In the dimension of doing, it is valid to solve practical questions of life. But in the practical sphere, it is not possible to resolve questions about destiny or one's own identity. For this, it is necessary to dive into the dimension of being, embracing comfortable uncertainty. So, try not to restrict yourself to just the dimension of trying to unravel the enigmas about your life, the situations you face, or the complexities of other people. While there is valuable space for unraveling answers, it is even more crucial to embrace the state of not knowing. This state, naturally, implies not thinking, where only a conscious presence remains. In this deeper sphere dwells a knowledge that transcends any mental process, a truly wise space. Operating at the human level, where the mind is engaged in mentally resolving practical issues, is an essential part of the experience. But it is equally essential to access a deeper dimension, the fundamental essence of human life, to discover that inner dimension that does not depend on mental elaborations. Here, the practice is not the constant search for answers, but, on the contrary, it is the surrender of thought. This transition can raise fears for the human self, which has built an identity based on thought. And allowing this surrender can seem scary, as there is an ingrained belief that, without constantly trying to understand and resolve mentally, life will collapse. Some people believe that if they don't worry about problems, they're not taking responsibility for their own existence. I honestly believe that this is a mistaken idea. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I say this from my own experience, but it's okay if some people disagree with me. We're here precisely to exchange ideas and experiences. Constantly clinging to the mental search for understanding can create unnecessary agitation and sows the seeds of unhappiness in life. Human unhappiness often does not originate from external circumstances, but from the narratives that the mind constructs about those circumstances. We are human beings, reflecting the two dimensions of who we are. The human dimension, with its mental, rational, and physical aspects, and the dimension of being, which transcends form, rests in stillness, and manifests itself in presence. Our challenge is to turn our attention away from the mind, abandoning the incessant search for mental solutions or understanding how to silence the voices. In fact, trying to drive them away only generates more voices. That's why I said previously that the first step is to be aware, because even to distinguish these voices requires a minimum of awareness at the moment when the voices start up again. We have to realize that we don't want this mental turmoil. It's necessary to cultivate a minimum awareness so as not to be readily absorbed by thoughts or by voices. Over time, we realize the futility of this. It's not wanted, it's not necessary. In fact, it's harmful. So get out of this turmoil and say to yourself, I am getting out of this turmoil. Direct your attention to other parts of the body. Feel the energy in them, and instantly your attention shifts away from your thoughts. Notice the vitality in them too. There's no need to comment, just feel it. Expand this awareness to the rest of the body. There is a field of vitality within us that is much more rewarding than thought. This is where we go, and presence becomes an anchor for non-thinking. The whole body participates in this state of awareness. We could say that every cell is awakening to consciousness, actively participating in this process. So try to feel the vitality pulsating in every cell of your body. Consciousness is not limited to our mind. Presence, the state of being present, encompasses the whole body. Awakening to consciousness is something truly magnificent, and in this awakening, we quickly free ourselves from mental domination. Even when we're working on this state of consciousness, after a minute or two, thoughts try to creep in once again. A thought arises, insisting what is crucial and that we should ponder it. But at this point, recognize it and say, okay, I'll let you go. Remember, there's no need to fight. After all, you can't fight a thought. Ignoring it, saying, go away, I don't want you, is just another thought. So simply observe them like floating clouds. You are the sky and the clouds are just visitors. So let them pass. There's no obligation to follow every cloud that comes along. The more you follow the clouds, the bigger they become. Achieving freedom means awakening to who we are beyond our history and our life situation. The key to serenity lies in full awareness. We are not just thinking minds. Our essence extends far beyond mental narratives and everyday worries. This perspective is an invitation to recognize our dual nature. We are human beings, involved in the practical demands of life, and at the same time, we are beings of presence, immersed in the eternity of the now. The ability to detach from the constant desire to understand and control, making room for inner stillness, is the real treasure. And when we face the duality of our existence, we embrace not only the victories but also the challenges, understanding that every nuance of life is an opportunity for growth and learning. It is a journey beyond excessive thinking, as it reminds us that the true answer to our questions is not found in mental elaborations, but in surrendering to the intrinsic wisdom of our own presence. So in the midst of life's uncertainties, embrace the peace that exists in true awareness, where the acceptance of not knowing becomes an infinite source of wisdom. May this journey towards presence be the light that guides your path, leading you to the discovery of your true essence and the blossoming of a full and meaningful life. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care and see you soon.